a break.
I also thought cigarettes were my best friend, and then they gave me peripheral artery disease.
I smoked and had a stroke. Actually, multiple strokes.
I smoked and have heart disease.
Here's my tip. If cigarettes are your friend, you need a better friend.
Call the Nebraska Tobacco Quit Line, 1-800-QUIT-NOW, 1-800-784-8669. Paid for by Tobacco Free Nebraska. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Hello, this is Mary Pat Waite. I've had the privilege of working with Lincoln families as their realtor for more than 31 years, and I'm so proud to be associated with MP Dodge Real Estate. For me, your transaction is unique in its own way. My experience allows me to bring you trusted care and a really great outcome. My NP Dodge family shares the same client focus.
Expand your career with NP Dodge. Call Eric at 402-434-2222.
This is the Happy Hour.
You guys going to happy hour?
Coming at you live from the heart of Lincoln, America.
Yeah, I'll come for a couple.
Here are your hosts, Nick Sainert.
I am a huge guy.
And Enrique Alvarez Clary.
C is for chunk.
Brought to you by Empire Fence and Netting on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome in. Happy Friday. It's the happy hour for one final time before we hand things off back to Adam Carricker on Monday from 12 to 1 p.m. Nick Sainert and Rico. What's up, Rico?
Yeller.
How's the day?
Fantastic.
Good.
It's getting ready to start snowing this weekend.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I just saw a model that says a weather model
Oh, never mind.
that says 6 to 8 inches of snow in the Lincoln area. Omaha around that 4 to 6 inches of snow area. So probably somewhere in the middle, around like 5 inches.
Fantastic. Please be safe. They're already treating the streets. You watch them, you see them driving by.
Which shout out to the Lincoln crew, Transportation Utilities, I believe is who handles all that, because friends of the station, number one. Number two, shout out to them because there was the couple of weeks ago when we had all that ice.
Ugh.
Everybody was freaking out about the freezing rain.
Yep.
And you saw all the videos up in Omaha of cars like sliding down residential streets.
Slipping and sliding all over the place.
I didn't have any issues, and from what I gathered from other people, nobody really had issues in Lincoln. And that was a very busy night because that was the night that Nebraska basketball played Indiana. Mm-hmm. That was the night that Nebraska volleyball hosted Dayton. It was a busy athletics evening in the city of Lincoln, and nobody had issues getting around the capital city.
Both places were packed, so it's not like people weren't driving around. There were people all over the place, and I didn't hear about any injuries or any types of accidents in the Lincoln area in the Star City.
And it's different, and they have like a method to where they use sand or salt, and it's like there's a specific method to when they want to use one over the other. And so there's actually there's science and like research put into it. It's
very scientific, and it's just like if it's going to be this temperature, it's going to be this type of precipitation, you can't use this, you have to use this, or if we use this, it'll only make it worse, or it'll make it slush or slimy or whatever. So you got to go to street salting school or something.
Yeah, we'll call it good. 402-464-5685, the Honda of Lincoln hotline, and the Starter Heyman text line are open for you guys the entire show today. It's going to be a good one today. It's going to go quick as we have 1 hour and a lot of stuff to get to. Obviously, Notre Dame knocks off Georgia yesterday afternoon. Notre Dame one win away from a college football national championship appearance under Marcus Freeman. So we'll dive into the Marcus Freeman, Brian Kelly discussion at LSU. But then also on top of that is on the other side of the bracket, Ohio State and Texas, and whether or not Ohio State even has to, I mean, they have to be concerned with it, but with the way that they're playing, it looks like whoever they face in the semifinals, whether it would have been Oregon or whether it would have been Arizona State or Texas, they are on such a roll right now, it doesn't even matter. And then on the other side, obviously with Notre Dame and Penn State, talk parity in college football as the playoff has kind of opened some eyes, and we'll kind of look at the playoff as a big picture. But then at 12:30, we're going to change gears and focus on Husker men's basketball. We'll actually be joined by Peyton Borders, the recruiting coordinator of Nebraska men's basketball, ahead of tomorrow's game against 15th ranked UCLA. Obviously, with that in mind, with UCLA. What kind of challenge do the Bruins pose for Nebraska? We'll talk recruiting with the recruiting coordinator, obviously, Coach Borders. And then also Bryce Williams, the type of season that he's having, what's that do and how much value does that bring for Nebraska in the recruiting game when they see transfers like whether it's Juwan, whether it's Bryce, when they see guys like that making an impact early on and throughout their entire careers in Lincoln, what does that do for the future? And talking about recruiting the next group of transfer portal guys, we'll talk to Nebraska basketball's recruiting coordinator, Padyn Borders, here around 12:30. He texted and said practice slated to get done around 12:15. Might go a couple minutes late, so we're kind of on a play it by ear type of basis.
Just call him while he's at practice. It'll be fine.
When Padyn joins us. Once again, 402-464-5685, the Honda of Lincoln hotline, and the Starter Heyman text line are open for you. You can always reach out to myself or Rico on Twitter, Nick_Sainer or at Radio Rico AC. Let's start with college football. Notre Dame knocks off Georgia yesterday. Rico, are you surprised? Because you picked Georgia to knock off the Irish. Are you surprised by the finish?
I'm surprised by how lopsided it was. I'm surprised with how dominant Notre Dame was against Georgia. I said it on the air. I wanted Notre Dame to win, but I'm picking Georgia to win because I just thought that the athletes that they had, the speed that Georgia had all around, all up and down their roster would, be able to pick apart the Notre Dame defense. And boy, was I wrong. Notre Dame's defense is on another level. Yeah. They neutralized Georgia's speed from the get-go. And really, they're on their backup quarterback, and it showed.
Well, and Steven on the text line, 464-5685, makes a great point. Georgia made a huge mistake by not just running the clock out at the end of the second quarter, and that dramatically changed the game. You're absolutely right, because I said it earlier this morning, and I'll repeat it, in that there was a moment, it was 6-3 Notre Dame after they converted on the field goal with like 47 seconds left in the second quarter, I believe. And we saw this was, poor mismanagement by staffs, whether it was Texas or now Georgia and Kirby Smart. Now, Mike Bobo, the former Colorado State head coach, calls the offensive plays for the Bulldogs, while Steve Sarkisian calls the plays for the Longhorns. Well, Sark 2 days ago, only in a crucial moment in the fourth quarter, ran 3 consecutive pass plays. It took 16 seconds of game time off the clock, and it allowed Arizona State at least an opportunity to go down and win the game on a last-second field goal, or if they would have scored a touchdown, made it even more likely that the Sun Devils were going to win. Ultimately, when it was all said and done, Arizona State had to punt the ball away. But still, that's one of those sequences in the game where you look back and say, if this would have happened, there would have been 2 things. The conversation right before Bert Auburn went out to kick the field goal, and his play calling decisions from the plus side of the 50-yard line, where he called 3 consecutive pass plays. It was 3 incompletions in a row, and Texas had to attempt a very long field goal.
That would have been one of those sequences where you look back at the end of the game, if the result had been flipped, and you look back and you're immediately second guessing yourself, like, why did we do this?
Yeah, you point to it and say, well, even with an injury at the running back position at the start of the year, Texas has been able to run the ball pretty efficiently,
very well,
all season long, with Contravius Wiesner and then Jaden Blue in the backfield. That, once again, why not give them an opportunity to bleed some clock? Maybe they get a 10 or an 8-yard gain, and it makes a much more manageable field goal for an experienced kicker like Bert Auburn.
And you've been running the ball pretty well all game.
Yeah, at certain times, right?
And you especially
hadn't been breaking
off mad,
especially while Quinn Ewers is not the healthiest of quarterbacks available for Texas. So that was one. But to Steven's point yesterday, and the announcers on ESPN even mentioned it too, to where if Carson Beck is in there, their offense is on hyperdrive and they're trying to score. But the difference between an experienced quarterback that's going to enter the draft in Carson Beck and a freshman making his first career start in the biggest stage of the season in Garrett Stockton, it's dramatically different. And while you can trust both guys to run the plays necessary and the expectation and standard doesn't change, there also is something to be said about being smarter than more so aggressive. And Georgia needed to do that yesterday. Strip sack, obviously, on the first play from scrimmage. And then Notre Dame
just a landslide from there
on a play action pass where, frankly, Georgia's defensive, the secondary bit on it so poorly And it just allowed a nice ball from Riley Leonard to find big number 5 in the end zone.
Riley Leonard, who does not throw the ball all that much.
No, and on top of that, frankly, Riley Leonard's legs were the only source of offense early on in the game and even into the third quarter, because with the special teams touchdown on the kickoff return at the start of the third quarter, Notre Dame had little to no offensive success in maintaining and stringing together long drives, sustainable drives, other than when they used Riley Leonard in the running game.
Yep.
And so, like, give credit to Georgia's defense to a certain extent, even earlier on, because they were able to shut down guys like Jeremiah Love in the backfield. They allowed Jordan Faison to have some receptions, but that's also going to happen on just some athletic catches and athletic routes.
You're going to get yours.
But for the most part, Notre Dame, both offenses, whether it was Georgia and whether it was Notre Dame, both offenses were kind of shut down and points were at a premium. And so Notre Dame, they would have been happy going into the half with a 6-3 lead, knowing that they get the ball to start quarter number 3. But then on top of that, they were able to get a momentum building play in a strip sack fumble where they recover it on the inside the 30-yard line, and Riley Leonard's able to throw a pass, and in one play, it's quickly a 13-3 game at half. And then in the blink of an eye to start the third quarter, it's now a 20-3 lead.
It's just over at that point, especially with the way that the Georgia offense had been not doing anything. That was it. That was the nail in the coffin. That third quarter score for Notre Dame pretty much put it out of reach for Georgia, unfortunately. And the SEC is really struggling in this bowl season, in this playoff season, to figure out how to win games aside from their newcomer, Texas.
Yeah. And so it's a weird dynamic. I mentioned this narrative also on the show this morning, and I want to get Rico's thoughts on it, as well as if you missed any of the content this morning, I want to get your guys' thoughts. 464-5685. And there's quite a bit of, we're seeing parody through all the negative comments about the transfer portal and guys moving on. And there's certainly negatives in that area of the game. But there's also some positives to where we mentioned it yesterday on yesterday's show, where Arizona State had Texas transfers that were making impacts for the Sun Devils and vice versa, where Arizona State guys were transferring to Texas. You're going to get the ones that obviously make changes to where, like, a guy from Ohio State will go to a program that's not as successful, and he'll make some impacts, but you won't see it on the college football playoff stage. But what we're also realizing is a lot of these guys will transfer from premier program to another premier program. And the one that I'm thinking most about is Caleb Downs at Ohio State. Caleb Downs was at Alabama Alabama last year. And he was at Alabama last year, earned all SEC honors, and transfers to another premier program, to where he is now one of the few unanimous selections to the All-American team in the country as just a sophomore. And so while the transfer portal can be poor and a negative thing for maybe some of the smaller programs, in the top echelon of schools and in the college football playoff specifically, it's creating a lot of interesting storylines, to where you have a guy like Riley Leonard who transferred from Duke. Duke's playing in a bowl game against Ole Miss and gets the break speed off of him. But Riley Leonard's now making this dramatic and big impact on the biggest stage against a program in Georgia that's building a dynasty. And so through it all, like, it's creating an opportunity for an Arizona State to be competitive against Texas. And it's creating an opportunity maybe even for Boise State, if they're able to go out and get a quality quarterback, or if they're able to go out and replace Ashton Genty with a high volume running back. It gives them a chance to compete.
Yeah. They thought that they had found their quarterback of the future, but he entered the portal again, the USC transfer.
Malachi Nelson,
but he entered the portal once again. But I don't think it's that much. I don't think it's that bad for the smaller schools, although you are going to lose your top talent. If they have, a good year or 2 good years, they'll end up going to a premier program to showcase their skills on a bigger stage. But at the same time, you have the ability as a smaller program to get some of those guys who maybe you were never going to be in the running for. Those guys who the middle 4 stars or some of the high 4 stars that just don't cut it at those premier programs, they enter the portal. They'll end up going to a Boise State or in this case, an Arizona State, even though they're in a Power 4 conference. You'll have a guy who out of high school was thought to be Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, schools like that. He goes there, just doesn't cut it, but he's still got a ton of talent. It's just not to the same level as the other guys in front of him. He ends up going to one of those smaller schools and balls out. And that's how you get a school like Boise State into the college football playoff, because you'll have guys who have all of the talent in the world, just aren't as talented as 2 or 3 guys at their position at a certain school.
There's certainly something to be said about maybe they need to reseed. Or I'd be curious in getting some thoughts from like coaches after, and this is like a conversation at like Big Ten Media Days, that we could have with like Ryan Days of the world and Dan Lanning, I suppose. Dan Lanning would probably have a little bit more of a feeling on it. Like, how valuable is a bye?
All the bye teams lost.
Well, yeah, that part, and that's probably not going to be the thing going forward. But I do wonder, like, how valuable the extra week off is when you've already played and your schedule's kind of accustomed to 12 consecutive weeks with, there's one bye worked in there, but you go back to some of the like the quarterfinal matchups, it would be the first round matchups.
Yeah.
The first round matchups, and the teams like Texas against Clemson, they started out slow. And the Notre Dames of the world offensively, once again, started out slow. And you had like Penn State did not, I mean, they had SMU, so they were fine. But
rude. Like
Ohio State and Tennessee started out extremely slow.
Yep.
So I wonder now with the extended time off, it's not just 1 week off for these teams that have buys. We're talking full months off.
They're off for a really long time.
And Amon Green said it earlier today, talking about, you know, when they would play and have so much time off that they would do 2 full scrimmages of like 80 plays per scrimmage to try to simulate a game as best you can. And
it's hard now because of the restrictions that they place on practices. You can't go full pads all that much. You can't go, and if you're not going full pads, you can't hit all that much.
Yeah.
So they have so many things that they have to try to work in and try to keep these guys going from when their season ended. Maybe they were on a roll. All of a sudden, you've got a whole month off if you're Boise State. And I understand before the game, they were talking about how Ashton Genty said he finally felt like his body was back to where it was at the beginning of the season.
Yeah,
I get that. But at the same time, your offensive line isn't blocking for you. You're not hitting these holes at the same clip that you were hitting at the end of the season. I understand that you're feeling fresher, but maybe it was just that your body was on a roll and your muscles were ready to go at all times. And now you've had so much time off. It's just a little relaxing. And I understand that you feel better, but it takes something away from you, because you notice that all those teams that had buys started, like you mentioned, they were starting slow. A lot of those teams were starting slow, but at the same time, I feel like you want to keep that buy in there, because if you, aside from Clemson, if you win your conference championship, you're playing if you're playing in your conference championship, you're playing an extra week that those other teams that are playing in that first round aren't playing. So you get that extra week off for rest and to get ready for that game. But at the same time, they're playing that week before, so they're ready to go when they come to you.
It creates this weird conversation, and I don't want to be like, this is not where I'm trying to go with this conversation. It is not necessarily comparing what's the value of a conference title versus a national championship and the opportunity to play for a national championship, because the easiest answer and conclusion from it is, well, guess what? If you win your conference title, you're automatically earning a spot. You don't have to try to work on it at the at-large bid. So you're kind of creating this difficult scenario, I guess, because a team like Oregon is going to sit here and go, yeah, we had to play an extra week, but then we had 3 weeks off because of it. We would have rather played in the quarterfinal, but then guess what? That doesn't mean we would have had to earn the at-large bid instead of the automatic bid. So it's like this
do you want to win your conference championship?
And your answer is yes, from a competitive standpoint. Number 2, there's incentives built into contracts.
Oh, yeah.
And then you automatically know you have a spot in the playoff, and that gives you a chance to win the games, and that's why you play the games. And so it creates this like this whole roundabout, and very difficult discussion, I guess, because are buys how valuable are the buys? And maybe after 1 year and one college football playoff, we don't have enough data.
Yeah.
We're going to need this for 2-3 years.
Next year, all 4 of the teams with buys could win.
Yeah. And all the higher seeds, but also like for those that complain about buys, this is the exact reason, or about the seeding.
Mm-hmm.
That is the exact reason. This is the perfect example of why it was important for college football to expand the bracket.
Yep.
Because
you wouldn't have had these 4 teams.
You wouldn't have had these 4 teams in the top 4. You would have had them playing in a quote unquote meaningless bowl game.
Granted, Arizona State and Boise State also wouldn't have been in the playoff.
That is correct. It would have been Texas taking Boise's spot.
Yes.
And whether it was Arizona, well, Arizona State would have been in.
No, they were in the top 4. Was it automatic with the 4 teams? Was it you win your conference, you're automatically in, or was it the top 4? Because Florida State won the ACC, didn't get in.
That's correct. Well, and part of Florida State's, though, was that Jordan Travis was not available.
Well, Georgia was missing their quarterback.
Yeah, but there's the SEC champion. Like,
I don't care. Florida State was the SEC champ.
We also saw, I mean, there was a point yesterday in the afternoon game where we saw the officials start to try to call it against Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I will say there was a couple pass interference calls where they were bad. And then right out of the gates, I mean, there was a couple of missed defensive holdings. And so, I mean, in comparison to the targeting penalty, in conversation with the targeting penalty the previous day, it's you have to ask the question, is that a targeting call in the first quarter? If your answer is yes, then it needs to be a targeting call in the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
If your answer is no, then it can't be one in the fourth quarter. And I think the majority of people, myself included, felt like that was a clearly and by rule a targeting. It fell under the umbrella of the targeting call. And whether it's the first, third, or fourth quarter doesn't really matter. And that's why you lead to believe that there's brand bias still in the officiating world.
My thing is, I could see where you don't call that targeting, because it seemed, if you're going full speed, it didn't seem like he lowered his head. It looked like it was just face-to-face, helmet-to-helmet contact in that aspect. But then when you slowed it down, you saw the head kind of drop a little bit, and that's just kind of what you do when you go in for it. Like, your head just kind of drops. Like, you don't go in for a tackle with your face up.
But it's the defenseless player piece of it. And then on top of that, that's where I think personally, if I was the commissioner, which I'm never going to be.
You might be.
But if I was in charge of switching up rules, create somewhat of like a tiered system where it's a flagrant 1, flagrant 2, because that way, if it is incidental contact, because things happen like that, and you can somewhat model it after the college basketball flagrant rules, to where if there's incidental contact to the neck or head area and it was on a defenseless player, then yeah, it's a flagrant 1 and it's a 15-yard penalty and automatic first down. But it just seems so aggressive and over the top that some of these do get called, and it results in an ejection and you know, the following 2 quarters that player has to sit out of the football game.
You and Connor Stallions.
Sure. I guess me and Connor Stallions.
He has the same idea.
But no, I think there's so whether it's 3 or 2, I don't really care. I think if you get it to 3, then you're 3 or more, then you're talking about really nitpicky. I think if you're able to look at it, and this is kind of how I felt 2 days ago when we watched the game, and I say 2 days ago because my days are all messed up. So Wednesday when we watched the game, was that if I can look at it and in the first 30 seconds or 10 seconds go, yeah, you know what, that's targeting. Or if I can go the opposite effect and say, you know what, that's not targeting, then you trust your gut. Like, you need your gut instinct.
Completely non-biased.
And that's it. Take away the names, take away the jerseys, take away the helmets. It doesn't matter. If the defender, it's defender versus wide receiver in this part.
I bet they call that if Arizona State was the ones making the hit.
And so I guess part of this, and this is what Thunder Not Collins says, he's going to swim. That's me. You can't have levels for a penalty that seemingly is not cut and dry on what actually constitutes a penalty. And that's where, I mean, we joked about it on the drive because AD and I kind of got into it over text about it. And AD said over text, he mentioned something about, you know, they need to call it only if it's egregious. Well, that's what targeting is essentially, in my eyes, is where it's forcible contact to the head or neck area, and in this case, on a defenseless player.
You can't just call it when somebody gets knocked out.
Yeah, and so there's differences, and rules are in place. Everybody wants to worry about protecting the offensive guy. We got to remember that this is also in line to protect the defensive guy as well. And you know, there's tiers for other penalties.
That's what I was going to say. David Firmino said there's tiers for roughing the kicker, running into, roughing. Like, it's like 5 yards for running into, 15 yards for roughing.
And so there's always going to be in sports and in officiating, whether it's baseball, whether it's basketball, whether it's football, it doesn't matter. There's always going to be subjectivity, and there's always going to be the human element in officiating. And I think that's part of what makes sports exciting, intriguing, and kind of leaves you on the edge of your seat, because there are better referees and better officials than others. And so on top of that, if you have somewhat of a tiered system with like flagrant 1 or targeting 1 and targeting 2, yeah, there is some where, you know what, there's forcible contact and it's obvious that the defender lunged or led with his entire body weight,
turn himself into
launched,
a missile.
You know, they use the word launched all the time. And plus that forcible contact. But then there's instances where on Wednesday, it should have been a penalty, and should Taff have been maybe ejected? Sure, by rule, but I don't know if necessarily you needed to kick him out or eject him. But did Arizona State deservedly so by rule? Should they have gotten a 15-yard penalty and automatic first down? Yeah. And since it happened on the biggest stage of that moment, that is what's creating this conversation around the country. And so they can take, in my eyes, some of the subjectivity, some of the human element out of the game and keep it, you know, objectively, is it a penalty? Is it not a penalty? They can, if they have it clearly defined in the rule book on what, hey, this is level 1 that only results in the 15 yards and automatic first down. But hey, you know what? And you can create it like an unsportsmanlike conduct rule to where, yeah, you know what? If I'm a defensive back and I get called for a targeting 1 foul twice in a game, yeah, it automatically gets updated to a targeting 2, and I got to sit out the next 2 quarters, just like they do in basketball, where if you get called for 2 flagrants, or if you get called for a flagrant 2, you're gone.
Yep.
Like I think there's other rules in various other sports that it's okay. College football can still be the leader of the pack and the big bad leader, even if they adopt other rules from other sports. Let's go ahead and take a break. When we come back, Padyn Borders, the Husker men's basketball recruiting coordinator, joins us. We'll talk UCLA tomorrow. That's a 1:00 tip-off on Fox, nationally televised game from Pinnacle Bank Arena. If you're the first 1,500 fans, you get a coffee mug that says the world's best fan. On top of that, we'll talk Bryce Williams, Raleigh Wooster, what they have meant to the program going forward. We'll ask him some various questions. Also, Padyn played a part in a basketball coaches academy over the summer and was one of the 50 invites. Only 50 coaches across the entire country, across men's and women's basketball, were invited to this academy. And I want to hear what Peyton learned from that. So we'll be joined by Nebraska men's basketball's recruiting coordinator, Padyn Borders, when we come back. It's the happy hour, one final time on a Friday. Step aside on 93.7 The Ticket.
Download our app by searching 93.7 The Ticket in your app store to stay in touch and listen all day long wherever you are. More of the happy hour is next on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Things that impair you come in many different shapes and sizes. Some are the shape of beer and liquor bottles. Others look like cigarettes but aren't cigarettes at all. These are the things we know impair us, the things our parents warned us about. What we're not always aware of is our new prescription, or the over-the-counter medicine we picked up just for allergies or a bad cold. See, it doesn't just matter how much of a substance you take. If you are impaired, driving is deceptively dangerous. Don't drive impaired. Paid for by the NDOT Highway Safety Office.
The Body Lab, located at 14th and Yankee Hill, is Lincoln's premier physical therapy and recovery lab. The Body Lab offers trigger point dry needling, cupping therapy, joint manipulation, and so much more. Looking to relax and relieve stress after a long day or difficult workout? The Body Lab's recovery lab is the ideal spot. Featuring infrared sauna, a cold plunge tub, or if you're just looking for enough space to stretch out and reset your mind. Learn more about memberships and schedule your service today at thebodylablnk.com or visit the Body Lab in person at 14th and Yankee Hill Road.
League One Volleyball is bringing the action to Omaha with Omaha's first serve on January 24th at 7 p.m. Central Time at the Liberty First Credit Union Arena. Witness history in the making as Love Omaha Volleyball takes on Love Madison in the team's inaugural home match. Be there to watch Olympic teammates Jordan Larson and Lauren Carlini go head-to-head in a battle of the world's best. Visit LOVBOMA.com for tickets starting at $31. Volleyball is the next major league. Garage doors can break down or quit working at the worst times. At Doors Plus, they understand that a broken garage sometimes means repair and not replace. Sometimes, all you need to make your door like new again is a few bolts, realignment, or even new balance. Trust the pros at Doors Plus to handle your garage door repair the right way so you can get on with your busy schedule. Visit them online at doorsplusllc.com or give them a call at 402-590-5800.
An hour ago, you didn't need a plumber. Now you're in a panic. When life throws you a surprise with a clogged drain, plugged or leaky toilet, broken pipe, leaky faucet or water heater, or a bathroom or kitchen plumbing upgrade, whatever. Just call Bryant Air Conditioning, Heating, Electrical, and Plumbing, 467-1111. Keep that number handy, 467-1111. Or go to BryantLincoln.com. Bryant Air Conditioning, Heating, Electrical, and Plumbing. We do whatever it takes.
The McKinney's Irish Pub in the Haymarket is your place for English Premier League soccer. On Saturday, Tottenham plays Newcastle at 6:30 a.m., followed by Crystal Palace playing Chelsea at 9 a.m. To cap off the Saturday action, Arsenal will face off against Brighton at 11:30 a.m. On Sunday, Fulham plays Ipswich Town at 8 a.m., and then Liverpool will take on Man United at 10:30 a.m. You can catch all these matches and more at the McKinney's Irish Pub, your headquarters in Lincoln for English Premier League soccer at 8th and P.
The electrical workers of Local Union 265 are now hiring licensed journeyman electricians from $32.50 to $42.50 per hour with paid benefits. And if you're looking for a new career, they're hiring apprentices at $19.50 per hour with paid benefits. Call the office at 402-423-4497 to apply. Start your electrical career today. Perch Merch is your one-stop shop for all your printing and promotional needs in Lincoln, Nebraska. They specialize in screen printing, embroidery, vehicle wraps, window wraps, print collateral, promotional products, and signage. At Perch Merch, they are committed to delivering high-quality products and exceptional customer service. Their experienced team of designers and printing professionals will work with you every step of the way to ensure that your vision is realized. Call for a quote today at 402-217-5212 or go to perch-merch.com. If you're sick of catering from the same places every month, it's time to switch things up. Mulberry Barbecue is perfect for business lunches and dinners, family gatherings, holiday parties, wedding receptions, rehearsal dinners, and so much more. Delivery and full service options are available, and they can cater for anything from 10 people to 500 people. Call them at 402-937-7114 to hear their menu options and get your catering booked today. Mulberry Barbecue, located at 11th and Cornhusker Highway.
93.7 The Ticket is proud to provide listeners with daily opportunities to win contests and prizes on our airwaves, and would like to take this opportunity to remind you of a couple rules. All participants must be 21 or older and must wait 30 days after winning a prize before participating in another contest. Once you win, you have 30 days to pick up your prize at the K&TK Studios, 1040 O Street in Lincoln, or your prize will be forfeit. Thank you for participating in our contest, and thank you for listening to 93.7 The Ticket.
Midwest Bank is proud to be your local community bank right here in Lincoln. This is Abby with Midwest Bank. Stop by our new location at 70th and Pioneers. Our new full-service branch does it all. From our friendly staff to our easy online banking and mobile app, you get all the technology of a big bank that you need, but you still get the hometown customer service that you want. Your community, your bank. Midwest Bank. Learn more at midwest.bank. Member FDIC.
You're listening to the Happy Hour with Nick Sainert.
This is a house of learned doctors.
And Enrique Alvarez Clary.
As soon as your eyes shut, I'm going to punch you square in the face.
On 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back into the Happy Hour on a Friday. Appreciate you joining us wherever you are, ending your holiday couple of weeks. These weeks are always so weird because it's like you got, especially this year, Christmas was kind of wedged in the middle. And you had a bowl game on Saturday, and then the following week it was New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. A lot of college football going on. But man, oh man, we got to talk about the team that's rocking it out at Pinnacle Bank Arena. Nebraska men's basketball getting ready for a big one tomorrow against 15th ranked UCLA. We've had him on the show before, and it's time we have him on again now. On the Allo VIP line, joined by Nebraska men's basketball recruiting coordinator Peyton Borders. Coach, how's it going, my friend? It's been a while since we talked to you. A lot of exciting things going on where you guys are at.
Nick, yeah, no, I appreciate you having me again. And I know it seems like a while, being preseason now, we're 13 games in, so it's pretty crazy. Time's flying, but it's been fun. And yeah, again, I appreciate you having me.
Let's start with that, because when we talked to you, Enrico and I talked to you first, it was about kind of like, what's the outlook for 2024 and 2025? And I remember you kind of saying you guys were excited about your experience, and that's kind of been the name of the game starting out. And you had a lot of intriguing guys that joined the program through the portal, but just kind of overall, what has allowed you guys to be so successful through your first 13 games?
Yeah, I mean, with experience, experience is almost irreplaceable. It's tough to simulate, 5 to 6 years in college basketball, and so some of these guys, they haven't played our style of basketball, obviously coming from the portal, but, they play college basketball. They know, how tough it is to win on the road. They know how physical it is. They know that, the Big Ten has a reputation. It's a grown man's league. So, just having our guys kind of learn our way and how we do it. But, when you get down to the nitty gritty, it's the same Big Ten basketball that you hear around and that everybody knows and loves. And, a lot of our guys, we just learning our style of play. And just other than that, it's the same stuff. You're going to play against 7-foot guys. We're going to see a 7'3" guy here tomorrow night. You're going to see skilled physical guards. You're going to have guys who can stretch the floor at all 5 positions. So it's just getting used to Big Ten play, getting used to how we play. And yeah, so it's college basketball at the end of the day. So it's been huge for us down the stretch.
You mentioned how you guys play as in someone in your role, as you navigate, and obviously maybe not as much right now as you do in the off season, but as you navigate through the portal and the recruiting world, what is that pitch? Like, what are you saying and talking about how you guys play? Because over these last couple of years, you guys under Fred Hoiberg have really embraced the defensive mentality. And it's a little different than when Coach Hoiberg got to Nebraska, and it's seen positive results. So what is your pitch on how Nebraska plays when you're talking to either transfers that are looking at Nebraska or even high school guys?
Yeah, I think, you're going to play for the hardest working, most together team. And that's fun. Simple, it's like when you get a chance to give it all on both ends of the floor, in front of 16,000 people at Pinnacle Bank Arena, every home game, that's fun, So a lot of it sells itself, it's kind of proof in the pudding too, right? It's kind of like you see guys now buying in to do what we do, really hanging our hat when that shot's not falling, that we can get stops on the other end and hold really good offensive teams down in the 60s. You're going to give yourself a really good chance to win the ball game, So it's really just buying in. And now that you're kind of getting substance to it and proof, you get a reputation nationally, having, a top 10, top 15 defense, in the country, that's fun, and that's the thing. I think guys, you see not only a system on offense, but a system on defense, and guys, it clicks, and it's cool when guys are flying around, we're in rotations, it's just fun. And we give our guys opportunity to make really good plays. And when they kind of see it unfold and see where those plays are being made, I would just say fun's the word, because when guys are flying around, there's nothing better. And obviously do it in front of the fans, and really hanging our hat on that end, it kind of sells itself.
No, we're talking to Nebraska men's basketball recruiting coordinator Padyn Borders. And I building off of that, there's got to be something to kind of what you just said that makes your job a little easier as a recruiting coordinator, to where, as you mentioned, the proof is in the pudding or so. You've been there now, I think it's like 4 years, correct?
Yes, sir.
So when you guys started out, it's Fred Hoiberg and the rest of the staff kind of pitching that, hey, this is what we're going to do, and we just need guys to buy in. It's the same message. There's just it's the same coaches, because you guys have had some stability on the coaching staff, which is invaluable as well, I'm sure. But then it's the same message. Now there's just wins behind it. And there's this tournament championship in Hawaii, and it's a confident and strong start at the end of non-conference play. It's got to make your job a little easier, right?
Yeah, I mean, winning is everything. You get down to everything. Winning just makes everything easier, right? So, it just having a reputation, where we don't have all of these national championships and all this stuff, but, if you can get guys to buy in and, now we're on TV every single night. And so people are seeing it, nationwide. We have international players. You're hearing about us internationally, and things like that. Like you get that reputation. Yes, obviously winning and everything helps, but, having everybody see eyes on it and seeing what Nebraska basketball is standing for, knowing that you see Nebraska on there, they're the hardest working team out on the court, and that's something that we just have to hang our hat on. And we tell our guys each and every night that that's what it's just got to be. It's a non-negotiable is what we say.
Well,
so.
And I'm sure that when you mentioned the 16,000 fans, I mean, right, that's a product that a lot of Husker fans can get behind too. Is when, Nebraska, this hardworking, you're from the state, right? Like, it. And so whether it's football, basketball, it doesn't matter. It's a hardworking product. A lot of Husker fans can appreciate that. Oh,
absolutely. And not only, the players are giving it all, but, like guys like Coach Linzer, Coach Howard, Coach Ziegler, and obviously Coach Hoiberg, those guys said themselves as well. I mean, those guys have been around, whether it's NBA or college, they've been around for years now. And so, they know what they're talking about, right? And guys, and they kind of buy in, they see, oh, wow, he was in the NBA or, he's had great success at the College World Final Four, things like that. It's stuff that it attracts them. Guys, it draws attention over here. But then, you got to see some of these guys' reactions when they walk in the Pinnacle, and that's when nobody's in it. These guys, it's amazing. It's truly breathtaking. And, we always just try to paint the picture. I was like, now just imagine 16,000 people who are screaming for you, cheering for you, man. And like I said, obviously being from here, it's special. This place is special. And I know how much these fans are behind us, and I look forward to tomorrow because I know this place is going to be rocking.
We'll talk about UCLA in just a moment. I want to talk about a couple specific guys though. And so much is made about Bryce and Jawan and what they've meant to this program. And especially as two transfers, like they're firmly like in the boat, and they are something that Nebraska fans can really cheer about. But I want to ask you specifically about a guy like Raleigh Wooster. You guys bring in an experienced kind of ball handler guard that in Raleigh, it takes maybe some of the pressure off of Bryce, who handled the ball a lot last year. While he still does that this year, obviously, but in Raleigh kind of presents a different skill set when he's on the floor. That's maybe not scoring first. He can score. We saw that in the last couple of games, but he's the prototypical stat line of like, he's going to add the assist. He's going to rebound well from the guard position. He just does that nitty gritty stuff. How important is it that you have multiple guys like that on a team? Because last year we saw the emergence of Sam, and now this year there's multiple guys that do the dirty work.
Yeah, I think too, it kind of goes back to experiences as well. Like Raleigh knows who he is. He knows what it takes to win, and he just wants to win. And, he's got family out here in Nebraska, so, he's got little baby pictures and Husker jersey stuff. So he already knows. Before he got here, he knew what Nebraska was, right? He had seen it. He knows that, if you play hard, you get on the floor, you rebound, you play physical, these guys, they're going to get behind you, and we're going to win games out here, And so, Raleigh's just a guy who's bought in, and is just so solid, and we're lucky to have him, and he's a well put together dude. Like that's a big guy, You're talking 6'5", well put together guy leading at your point guard position, which helps his rebounding, helps him get through screens. Just a guy who we just you think of Husker basketball, you think of just somebody like that, who's willing to do the dirty work, and he's just been so great for us. But like you said, guys with the experience, they know their role. A lot of these guys, like we don't need them to come in and be somebody different than what we when we scouted them, right, when they were coming in. We just need them to be themselves. So a lot of guys, they know who they are. They bond in the role. They see the role that they're on their team, and they just, they do it, and they try to do it to their best. And so that's, again, kind of that experience factor in this as well.
We have to talk about Bryce Williams a little bit here, because I'm sure you were involved in the scouting process from when he was at Charlotte before Nebraska. I mean, just as somebody that's been around, obviously, the program for the entirety of the time that Bryce has been involved in the program and been around Bryce, like how does it make you feel when you go out and see him having this type of season individually, but then how that transpires across the entire roster in comparison to kind of what you guys expected him to be and wanted him to be when you initially had those preliminary conversations with him out of the portal?
Yeah, well, first off, I'm just so happy for Bryce. He's a guy who is so humble and such a sharp guy who does so much for us and is not the most vocal guy. He's not going to be the loudest guy in the room. He's just going to have that smile. He's going to be a guy who we've been able to lean on. And I'm happy for him because you're seeing now kind of what we saw flashes of, to your point, like while we was scouting him. You saw flashes of, a 6'7" wing that can score at all three levels. And, that's very interesting because, being from here, you name guys off like Teran Petaway and James Palmer that were able to do that. And we just, we haven't really seen a player like that. So when you're scouting a guy like that, you're kind of, we haven't really just had anybody like that over the past couple of years, and, you had like a guy like Bryce McGowan, things like that. But, it's a guy like him who's able to score, like I said, all three levels, but also rebounding and assists. That's when we are at our best, when he's doing, a little bit of everything. It's obviously we'll take a 30-point performance from him any night. But when he's doing the rebounding and he's getting everybody involved, when everybody's clamping down on him, when he has all the attention, that's when he's at his best. And when he's guarding, that's another thing I think a lot of people don't really consider is a lot of times we have him on the lead guard as a point guard. So that's a 6'7" guy out there fighting through screens, and he can be a monster. And so that it's something that I'm really happy for him. For it's all clicking for him.
As a scouter like yourself, what's his ceiling?
I mean, you're talking about a guy who can play basketball for a long time. Is a guy who, with how he carries himself, his professionalism, his work ethic, is a guy whatever level it may be. You're talking about a guy who's should make a lot of money doing this thing and playing a lot of years, professionally. So I really look forward to what the future holds for him.
We're speaking to Nebraska men's basketball recruiting coordinator Padyn Borders with us here on our Allo VIP line. Padyn, I guess let's talk UCLA tomorrow because it's a big one. And I guess what kind of challenges do the Bruins pose for you guys as they're kind of a defensive first team as well? They really pride themselves with Mick Cronin defensively. But I guess what kind of challenges do the Bruins pose for you guys ahead of tomorrow?
Something that immediately jumps off the board there is they're number one in the country in steal percentage, right? So, you're talking about, I can't remember the exact percentage. I think 26% is what they said is that they're getting a hand on the ball and they're going the other way. So, that could put strain on your defense because you're not in the half court set, right? So, it's the emphasis of just taking care of the ball. But also knowing that I know it's a little bit foreign to us. Obviously, UCLA now that's considered league play, but they're a Big Ten team. It's not like they're going to come in and they're trying to play a different style of play. It's the same thing that you're going to see from the Michigan States, the Wisconsins. They're going to be a physical, hard-nosed, defensive-centric team. And they're obviously Coach Cronin does a great job over there, and he's somebody who pushes those guys extremely hard. And their guys always play hard each and every night. So they're like I said, defensively, they're talented on the defensive side, but I don't want to take away from their offensive side because they have very unique talent, with their five being able to stretch the floor, and then their guards are dynamic, able to take guys off the dribble, So, we got our hands full on both ends, but, we guys, like I said, going back to this experience, guys have been in big games like this, and so, we're going to lean on guys, just going out, not trying to do too much, take care of the ball, and just matching their physicality that they're going to try to impose on us tomorrow. So, yeah, absolutely.
You mentioned the new landscape of the Big Ten, and just a couple more before we get you out of here. You mentioned the new teams in the Big Ten. I think so much is made from the outside about these new teams that are joining the Big Ten Conference. Inside, like you just said, it doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot because you're going to see all four. You're going to see UCLA, you're going to see USC here soon, and then road games to Washington and Oregon. It doesn't mean much difference probably on the inside, like you kind of just mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, you look at, and especially now, you can kind of make a Big Ten team out of it, if that makes sense. Like with Washington having, a first-year head coach out there with Danny Sprinkle, they're able to get some size in there. They're able to get some dynamic guards, some wings that can score, and they just knocked off Maryland at their place last night, which is a very good win for them. But yeah, it just, you look at all those new teams, and like you said, on the outside, it's like, you see USC, Nebraska, or Nebraska, Oregon, and it's a conference game, but you watch what's produced out there and the style of basketball. It's stuff that we've all seen before and what we've scouted for and everything. It's going to be a physical night where no game is given and anybody can lose any night. You got to be, the team that, just like Coach Nate Lenzer always says, just be the team that gets your game out on the court. Just get your game, carry the game plan over, and that's going to give you, and play hard, and that's going to give you the best chance. So it definitely didn't get any easier for us, if that makes sense. So, but no, it's great having them, and it makes our league, one of the best leagues in the country, and yeah, we're excited for that.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking when it comes tournament time, like 8 or 9 bids, probably. I mean, that's really, really special. Padyn Borders, recruiting coordinator of Nebraska men's basketball. Coach, appreciate it as always. Always good to catch up with you. And we'll see you tomorrow at PBA. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, no, we're excited. Thank you again for having me. And it was fun seeing DP out there in Hawaii. I'm glad we got it done for him out there.
There it is, for sure. There he is. Padyn Borders. Talk to you soon, Coach.
All right, take care.
There he is, recruiting coordinator Padyn Borders of Nebraska men's basketball. A big one tomorrow on national television. Fox number 15. UCLA comes to town. It's going to be a sellout. That one's full down at the Vault. Let's step aside. We got to take a quick break and wrap things up on the other side on 93.7 The Ticket.
Follow Nick and Enrique on Twitter at Nick_Sainert and at Radio Rico AC. More of Happy Hour is next on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Garage doors can break down or quit working at the worst times. At Doors Plus, they understand that a broken garage sometimes means repair and not replace. Sometimes, all you need to make your door like new again is a few bolts, realignment, or even new balance. Trust the pros at Doors Plus to handle your garage door repair the right way so you can get on with your busy schedule. Visit them online at doorsplusllc.com or give them a call at 402-590-5800. League One Volleyball is bringing the action to Omaha with Omaha's first serve on January 24th at 7 p.m. Central Time at the Liberty First Credit Union Arena. Witness history in the making as Love Omaha Volleyball takes on Love Madison in the team's inaugural home match. Be there to watch Olympic teammates Jordan Larson and Lauren Carlini go head-to-head in a battle of the world's best. Visit lovoma.com for tickets starting at $31. Volleyball is the next major league.
Perch Merch is your one-stop shop for all your printing and promotional needs in Lincoln, Nebraska. They specialize in screen printing, embroidery, vehicle wraps, window wraps, print collateral, promotional products, and signage. At Perch Merch, they are committed to delivering high-quality products and exceptional customer service. Their experienced team of designers and printing professionals will work with you every step of the way to ensure that your vision is realized. Call for a quote today at 402-217-5212 or go to perch-merch.com.
Advanced Medical Imaging is the largest radiology group in Nebraska, located in Lincoln at 7601 Pioneers Boulevard. At Advanced Medical Imaging, they utilize state-of-the-art technology and blend it together with their compassionate, skilled team to guide you through every step. Whether it's an MRI, CT scan, or X-ray, their precise diagnostics help your doctor deliver the best care plan for you. Choose clarity and comfort in your life by choosing Advanced Medical Imaging, located at 7601 Pioneers Boulevard and online at amimaging.com.
You're listening to the Happy Hour with Nick Sainert.
Look at him and tell me there's a God.
And Enrique Alvarez Clary. Sponsored by Empire Fence and Netting on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Great stuff from Nebraska men's basketball recruiting coordinator Padyn Borders. If you missed any of that, make sure you check it out on the podcast page or on the Starter Heyman Jewelers live video stream. You can always go back and check out previous shows. Great conversation. He mentioned something about, there's proof in the pudding, and all I can think about is not to bring college football back into this, but I'm going to, with Kenny Dillingham saying he was on the radio and he was talking about, he said, it's the same message that I kind of preached in year one of recruiting. It's just guys had to take a wait and see approach. They wanted to make sure that they were proving that, hey, this is going to work out. And now it's the same message being broadcasted to recruits in year two, but now there's wins behind it. And Coach Borders said it perfectly. He said, winning is everything, and it certainly helps in the recruiting game.
Yeah, it's that hard part. It's that in between where you can either be the people who started off and set that foundation, or you can be the guys who, and this isn't taken away from anybody, but you can be the guys who finally that foundation is set and the proof in the pudding and everything is moving in the right direction. You're like, you know what? Yeah, that is the place that I want to go. That is the part of the organization that I want to be a part of. So it's one of those two things where you have to have some people get in there first to get it going and to start the process of moving in the right direction. But once that starts happening, that's when you'll start bringing in more people and bringing in even more talent.
So it's important to mention that tonight there is one important bowl game.
Hey, they're both important.
They're both important, but
I know which one you're not talking.
First of all, they have the first responder bowl between North Texas and Texas State.
Who you got?
North Texas.
How
is fine.
dare you?
However, the Duke's Mayo Bowl is tonight, and there's a chance that we see PJ Fleck get doused in Duke's Mayo.
There's also a chance that Nate Brennan is happy and Virginia Tech wins.
That is true as well. Rico, any exciting plans this weekend? You going to go to the UCLA game?
I'm not going to go to the UCLA game. I will be watching it. Spending time at home and watching the snowfall with the kiddos, and then probably if there is a lot playing outside.
Yeah, be safe.
We'll see how it goes.
We're getting ready to get out of here.
Fun time.
The locker room with Chancellor Brewington is coming up next. Once again, thanks to Padyn Borders, recruiting coordinator for Nebraska men's basketball, for joining the show. Have a great weekend as we will hope and cheer on for a Nebraska basketball victory
over UCLA Bruins.
Over number 15 ranked UCLA.
For anybody who's been listening to the ticket for any extended period of time, you remember Ryan Tabb, big UCLA guy. I need you to tweet at him and make fun of him. Before the game, after the game, doesn't matter.
There you go. All right, we're out of here. The locker room with Chancellor Brewington is coming up next. Stick around. Plenty of stuff coming up later on this afternoon to round out your week. We'll talk to you soon.
Adios.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com.
On the internet.
KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket.
Are you a skilled mechanic looking for your next big opportunity? Constructors is hiring. We're looking for experienced mechanics to join our family-owned team. We offer competitive wages, great benefits, brand new service trucks, OEM-level diagnostic software, and career growth opportunities. Positions include lead and A-level mechanics for our shop and multiple field technicians. If you're driven and ready to grow with a company